My sister spent years framing me as crazy and toxic, and manipulating our family with lies. But I finally fought back by exposing the truth and posting all the evidence on social media. I was never the favorite growing up. My older sister, Amelia, 31F, has always been the center of attention, and I'm currently 29. It was disastrous if I dropped a plate. The way things were in my family, if Amelia broke something, well, accidents happen, and she didn't mean it. She always held a special place in my parents' hearts. In the meantime, I was held responsible for all mishaps. However, as we grew older, what began as minor issues became into something far more sinister. Amelia began using cunning to make me the fall guy when I was approximately 8 years old. She once stole a $20 note I had been saving for Christmas after sneaking into my room. She then informed our parents she saw me stealing it from my mom's pocketbook and shoved it into my backpack. They believed her, of course. Why wouldn't they? After all, I was the one who caused the situation. After finding the money in my bag, Mom grounded me for a month. I was unaware of how it arrived until Amelia later gave me a sly smile and remarked, "You're too easy." Missing homework, stolen lunch money, and damaged vases became commonplace. Amelia blamed me, if she could. She had mastered the technique of gaslighting by the time we were teenagers. She would stage arguments in which she remained composed and calm, while I, frustrated and perplexed, would yell, "That's not what happened." Naturally, this only gave the impression to my parents that I struggled with anger management. As we move on to maturity, Amelia remains the same. She has, if anything, gotten worse. She is skilled at fabricating tales that portray me as the insane attacker and her as the naive victim. Amelia made up this story about how I blew up at her over something insignificant a few years ago at a family cookout. By the end of the night, my mother was staring at me as if I had just kicked a puppy, even though it had never happened. However, the most recent episode was the final straw. We had a family get-together at my parents' house a few months ago. I believed everything went smoothly. I avoided getting close to Amelia, helped clean up after supper, and never yelled at her. However, my mother called me the following day, enraged. She claimed that Amelia informed her that I had a breakdown and yelled at her without cause. Amelia apparently felt unsafe staying in the house that night since she was so upset. Nothing of this, not a word of it told. But once more, my folks didn't challenge her. They stopped answering my calls after that. I was blocked on social media by my dad. I received a lengthy text from my mother telling me that I needed to focus on myself and get therapy for my anger. It was embarrassing. I tried defending myself, but nothing I said mattered to them. Amelia's word is gospel. The worst part? It didn't stop with my parents. My cousin Sophie came out to me recently, stating she heard from Amelia that I was dangerously unstable and required professional help. Amelia has been spreading this narrative to anyone who will listen. She's painted me as this ticking time bomb, and I've been powerless to stop it. A few towns over, I now live alone in a tiny apartment. I have a few close friends who know who I really am, and I have a reliable job. During all of this, they have been my pillar of support, particularly as my family continues to distance themselves. But continually having to defend myself and tell people that I'm not the monster Amelia portrays me as is tiresome. It's similar to fighting a battle in which I'm standing there with no weapons and the opposing side has all of them. Trying to figure out where it all went wrong, I was going through my old messages with Amelia a few nights ago. At that point, I became aware of trends. Instances in which she contradicted herself, instances in which she made a mistake and unintentionally acknowledged her lies. I began storing emails, taking screenshots, and putting everything in a folder. I would provide evidence if no one was going to trust me on my word. Regaining my life is more important than simply cleaning my name. According to my relative, Amelia has been informing others that I pose a risk to both myself and other people. It's defamation, not just a falsehood. I've made the decision to stop allowing her to continue to destroy me. It's okay if she wants to play dirty. But I'm retaliating this time. I've already been recording everything, including voicemails, texts, and conversations with my family. For the times when I have to interact with Amelia face to face, I'm also considering purchasing a recording device. My friends are encouraging and even advise that if the need arises, I consult a lawyer. I should publish a book about how to deal with a sister sociopath, someone even quipped. Then, as if in a flashback, I recalled something from our childhood. Amelia had persuaded my parents that I was pilfering money from their wallets when I was 14. Naturally, I wasn't, but I recall asking myself at the time, how can I prove something I didn't do? I feel just like that right now. However, I have a strategy this time. Communicating with my parents one final time in an attempt to reach them is the first step. I'm going public if it doesn't work. I have no idea where this will go, but I do know that I will no longer remain silent. First update. I made the decision to take charge of the situation and quit being reactive after my last post. Amelia had been in charge of the story for years, but I was determined to use hard, unbiased facts to change it. Preparation was the first step. I purchased a tiny, discreet recording gadget online that would fit neatly in my pocket. Although it wasn't inexpensive, I reasoned that it would be well worth the money if it could catch Amelia in the act. I realized that I could no longer merely rely on my word. I needed evidence because people believe what they see and hear. After setting it up, I contacted my cousin Sophie. Despite being close to Amelia, she is one of the few family members who still communicates with me. She might be aware of Amelia's recent remarks about me, I reasoned. Sophie was hesitant at first when we met, but when I told her everything that had been happening, she acknowledged that Amelia had been boasting about how simple it was to make me look bad. She used that word, simple. Sophie acknowledged that Amelia had been spreading rumors about me losing it at family gatherings, but she didn't seem totally at ease with the situation. She added that even distant relatives had been acting strangely around me because Amelia had been telling others that I need professional treatment. I realized after that talk that I needed to organize myself better. I saved screenshots and organized them into folders as I dug through old emails, texts, and anything else I could locate. Although it took a while, it seemed like progress. I discovered emails in which Amelia played the victim after obviously starting a fight, texts in which she attempted to guilt-trip me, and exchanges in which she contradicted herself. Everything was there, in black and white. Unintentionally, the next puzzle piece fell into place. Amelia and I met up at a mutual friend's birthday celebration a few days later. When I saw her, I nearly left because I didn't know she would be there, but I saw it as an opportunity. I stayed and switched on the recording gadget in my pocket. Amelia came over to me right away. She was wearing that arrogant expression that she always gets when she knows she is in charge. She made a few nasty remarks, pointed enough that I knew exactly what she was doing but subtle enough that anyone listening may assume she was just making jokes. Then, as if to pour salt in the wound, she stated something along the lines of, "It doesn't matter what you say, everyone believes me, not you." I didn't respond, just let her talk, knowing the recorder was capturing every word. I began noticing ambiguous, dramatic posts on Amelia's social media after the party. She was clearly referring to me when she said things like, "It's exhausting having to deal with toxic people who can't take responsibility for their actions. And some people will never change, no matter how much help they need." Of course, she didn't name names. It's part of her strategy to keep things vague enough that no one can directly criticize her, so she never does. Then I received an unexpected call from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in months. She inquired about my well-being at the beginning of the session, but it soon evolved into her voicing concerns about my mental health. She had apparently been speaking to Amelia as well. I had no idea how far the lies had spread. I made the decision to test Amelia at that point. I said to Sophie that I was thinking of accepting a job out of state, knowing that she would relay it to Amelia. I gave the impression that I had already begun packing. As expected, my mother called me the following day, enraged. Despite the fact that we hadn't spoken in weeks, she accused me of being self-centered for arranging to move without consulting the family. That proved it. Amelia had very instantly spread the false information. I began to see a pattern in Amelia's conduct as I dug further. Her falsehoods affected other aspects of her life in addition to me. She claimed to hold a high-ranking job at work on social media, yet I recall her whining last year about not getting promoted. She also tweeted images from a business trip that I'm pretty sure were taken during a vacation with her friends. The more I examined, the more I understood lying wasn't simply a tactic for her, it was a habit. Emboldened, I made the decision to seek legal advice. I wanted to know my choices even though I wasn't sure if Amelia's conduct qualified as slander. The attorney acknowledged that defamation trials are difficult, but she was cautious and said I had a good case if I could demonstrate that Amelia's falsehoods had harmed my reputation. In the meantime, people were responding favorably to my Reddit article. The amount of support I got was tremendous. Individuals offered guidance on how to obtain proof and related their personal experiences with manipulating family members. Others even recommended cutting off all communication with my family, but I wasn't prepared for that just yet. Not until I revealed the truth. I discovered something significant while formulating my plan, a secret about Amelia that has the potential to alter everything. Let's just say this could be the secret to changing the course, but I'm not ready to reveal the specifics just yet. Second update. Things swiftly became very serious after my last update. Amelia was leaking information, as the fictitious story about me moving out of state proved, but it was only the start. Finding out something that went well beyond her lies about me was something I hadn't anticipated. My cousin Sophie was the first. She casually brought up Amelia's financial assistance to my parents as we resumed our conversation. I was intrigued by that as I was aware of Amelia's precarious employment situation. Sophie continued by explaining that Amelia had been alleging that I wasn't assisting at all and that she was paying our parents' bills. I was offended when she even gave me a screenshot of Amelia griping to a family member about being the only responsible one. I got curious and dug. Normally, my parents don't discuss money, but on one of my trips years ago, I saw my mom's email password written in an old notebook at their house. My notes still contained it. I checked her email inbox after logging in. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I eventually discovered it. A series of letters Amelia sent to my parents stating that she needed money for unexpected expenses. Medical and work-related charges were explained in imprecise terms, but they didn't add up. One email had what seemed to be fictitious hospital bills and auto repair shop invoices attached. I looked up the name of the hospital on Google, but it wasn't there. I contrasted Amelia's Instagram photos with the dates on the invoices. She was sharing selfies from a beach vacation on the day she was allegedly incapacitated due to a medical problem. But that wasn't all. Confirmations of bank transfers were buried in the emails. Over the previous 2 years, Amelia had received thousands of dollars from my parents. I felt sick to my stomach. While she presented herself as their rescuer to the rest of the family, they were financially supporting her because they accepted her narrative so wholeheartedly. I collected everything of it, including screenshots from her Instagram postings, invoices, and emails. I then sent my parents an anonymous email including the proof. I only provided the information, not my name. My mother contacted me within hours, obviously upset. She said I had made up the paperwork to spite Amelia. In contrast, my dad remained silent during the call, which indicated to me that he was beginning to piece things together. Sophie sent me a message the following day. It seems that Amelia was addressed by my parents regarding the email. Naturally, she denied everything and made up a wild tale about how I must have hacked her accounts to fabricate the proof. She even made the ridiculous accusation that I had been stalking her. The worst part is that she tried to further discredit me by calling half the family. I needed help, she added, since I was spiraling. A few family members messaged me to check on me. I was furious, but I said nothing. Allowing her to dig her own grave was my goal. That chance arrived sooner than anticipated. Amelia called me, most likely to get me to say something she could misrepresent. I recorded the talk on my cell phone while maintaining composure. She eventually dropped her guard and acknowledged that she had borrowed money from my parents, but she said it wasn't a big deal because they're fine financially. That recording was the last piece of proof I had gathered. I discussed everything that had been going on with my therapist in the interim. Although she had already been assisting me in coping with the psychological effects of Amelia's actions, I requested something more specific this time. In direct opposition to the falsehoods Amelia had been propagating, she consented to submit a letter attesting to my mental stability. Equipped with proof, I made the decision to go public. After setting up an anonymous account, I began sharing screenshots of Amelia's deception and manipulations on the internet. I didn't include my name or any information about my family, but the tale took off right away. Some surprised commenters even related their personal experiences with toxic siblings. After the post went viral, members of Amelia's extended family started contacting her to express regret for believing her. This was the decisive event. My dad in particular began to doubt Amelia's accounts. The holes in Amelia's facade started to show as more family read the posts and expressed their own suspicions, but my mom remained in denial and held on to the belief that Amelia must have had good intentions. Amelia became agitated at that point. She accused me of defamation and threatened legal action. She was unaware that I had been seeking legal advice from the start. My attorney warned me that whatever case she attempted to make against me would probably fail since I had strong proof. The moment of truth then arrived. My parents insisted that it was time to talk and invited me to join them for a family supper. I was prepared, but Amelia was also present, smug as ever. I showed the room all of the recordings, emails, and screenshots while we were eating. It was similar to viewing a film. My mom was stunned, Amelia lost it, and my dad's face went white. The evidence was strong, notwithstanding her accusation that I set her up. My parents expressed regret at the end of the evening. It wasn't flawless, and I continue to doubt their sincerity, but it was a beginning. "We'll all regret this," Amelia yelled as she walked away. The lies were exposed for the first time in years, and Amelia's deceitful scheme had finally come to an end. Third update. I assumed that everything would finally calm down after the family meal where Amelia's falsehoods were revealed. Amelia instead went into overdrive, making every effort to portray herself as the victim. My phone was inundated with messages from extended family in a matter of days. Some were perplexed, inquiring as to what was happening, while others were furious, accusing me of planning Amelia's public disgrace. Amelia had been quite busy, it turned out. Making up a fresh story, she contacted everybody who would listen, claiming that I had orchestrated the entire altercation to ruin her image. She accused me of manipulating her emails, faking the recordings, and breaking into her accounts. She went on to say that I had been harassing her by attending occasions without an invitation. Even though it was nearly absurd, it convinced some people who were already predisposed to accept her. My mom wasn't so sure, but my dad appeared to see right through her charade. She informed me that Amelia had been crying uncontrollably and that I had destroyed her life. Mom continued to hold on to the belief that Amelia would not behave in this manner unless she had a valid cause. Seeing my parents fall into two camps, one beginning to believe me, the other still enchanted by Amelia, was tiresome. A week later, during a cousin's birthday celebration, things broke down. Sophie persuaded me that it would be a good opportunity to show the family that I wasn't hiding, even if I hadn't planned to go. Naturally, Amelia was also present. She wasted no time at all. She began to become agitated and accused me of stalking as soon as she spotted me. She gestured toward me and informed the group that I had framed her by hacking her accounts. It was anarchy. Knowing that my recorder was running in my pocket, I remained composed and let her dig her own grave. Even other family members who had stood with Amelia began to feel uneasy due to the outrageous claims. I listened to the recording after the party, and everything was there, her tone, the dramatic charges. But I discovered something much more startling before I could even make up my mind on what to do with it. Amelia sent me messages years ago posing as me while I was reading through old emails. She had sent nasty and derogatory emails to family members in my name, fabricating entire conversations. That clarified a lot of things, including why some family members had abruptly cut off contact with me. Her fictitious emails contained terrifying details. She even imitated my manner of writing. I sent my parents this new evidence after compiling it. Seeing Amelia's trickery for what it was, my dad was incensed. But my mother was hesitant. As if it somehow justified everything, she asserted that Amelia must have had a motive for her actions. The proof was self-evident, so I didn't press her. Amelia then intensified her threats of legal action. Her attorney accused me of harassment and defamation and sent me a cease and desist order. My lawyer got back to me right away with copies of the evidence we had already collected. A counter-threat was also included in the response. I would sue Amelia for emotional anguish and slander if she persisted in her deception campaign. Later, Sophie informed me that Amelia had privately acknowledged that she had no solid case. She was hoping that the fear of legal action would scare me into giving in. Amelia fell silent for a bit after that failed. However, I wasn't finished yet. I went back to Reddit in frustration. I included screenshots of emails and recordings, with identifiable information removed, in my in-depth post on all that had transpired. In less than a day, the post received over 50,000 upvotes, causing it to go viral. Many people shared their personal accounts of manipulating family members in the comments section, and some even offered suggestions on how to handle Amelia's most recent slander effort. However, it didn't end there. Internet detectives began examining Amelia's online activity in the comments section. They pointed out that her work titles appeared to vary based on the social media site, causing contradictions in her tweets. According to a user who claimed to know Amelia, she had lied about advancements and overstated her role at work. Amelia experienced severe issues as a result of this revelation. After word reached her workplace, she was apparently summoned for a meeting to explain her stance. The fallout grew when more family members came across the Reddit post. Some demanded explanations from Amelia over the phone. Others apologized to me for falling for her falsehoods. Amelia's well-crafted persona was unraveling, and she was no longer in charge of the story. After a while, even my mother had to face Amelia. It was impossible to ignore the growing facts. Amelia sobbed, saying that I had destroyed her life and that she had only lied because she had been forced into a difficult situation. My mom tried to console her even after my dad warned her to stop making excuses. Even though it was annoying to observe, at least the truth was now known. Being vindicated was satisfying, but the entire process was exhausting. The emotional toll and incessant calls and messages were too much to handle. It was difficult to continue. Despite Reddit and my friends' encouragement, I wasn't giving up though. I became cautious after Amelia's breakdown because this wasn't yet over. Fourth update. Amelia started acting strangely after I last gave her an update. Now that the majority of the family was on my side, she began to make further false claims, saying the material I provided was made up with expert assistance. She claimed to anyone who would listen that I had paid someone to make phony emails and hack her accounts. Amelia has always been skilled at raising doubts, especially in those who were unaware of the whole narrative, even though the story was ridiculous. Then came the anonymous messages. Burner accounts started sending me emails accusing me of lying manipulatively. Despite their bad writing, I could tell that the texts were from someone who was familiar with the circumstances. Some of them had ambiguous threats to damage my reputation. I needed evidence, but it wasn't difficult to determine who was responsible. I contacted an IT-related acquaintance of mine. We were able to link the emails to an IP address connected to Amelia's home network with his assistance. I needed validation like that. Equipped with this knowledge, I took notes on everything and stored it away. Knowing that Amelia was probably hoping for a response, I chose not to reply to the messages. A few days later, Amelia did something unexpected. She said in a lengthy message that she wanted to move on from the past and start over. She wrote about how difficult it had been to watch our family fall apart and how much she missed our sibling closeness. She was acting so strangely that I thought she might be up to something. However, I complied and agreed to see her in a public setting. Just in case, I brought my recording equipment to the meeting. Amelia tried to move the conversation in the direction of reconciliation by being too amiable. But she made a mistake throughout our conversation. She began ranting about how difficult it had been for her to maintain her composure over the years and jokingly said that it had been simple to frame me when we were younger. The entire chat was videotaped, and she dismissed it with a laugh, claiming that it wasn't a big problem because no one got hurt. I showed my parents and some important family members the recording after the meeting. There was no denying Amelia's tone or her nonchalant admission of guilt. My mom, who had been reluctant to believe me completely, ultimately apologized, and my dad was incensed. Any remaining doubts had been dispelled after hearing Amelia's own words. Along with an update on the anonymous messages and the IP address trace, I also posted the recording to Reddit. Even more attention was drawn to the thread than to my earlier post. The extent to which Amelia had gone to defend her lies astounded people. Many readers shared similar stories of toxic family members, and the replies were a combination of fear and support. Amelia's world quickly began to fall apart. Within a day after the update went public, she erased all of her social media accounts. Even those who made an effort to maintain their neutrality withdrew themselves, and friends and family who had previously supported her started to break off their relationships. Although Amelia had always been skilled at managing the story, she no longer had a stage on which to tell her tales. At about the same time, I received a message from a friend of Amelia's. She wanted to share her experiences after seeing the Reddit thread. She shared screenshots of her talks with Amelia with me, showing me how she used to control their friend group. Lies, victimization, and inciting animosity between people were all part of the same pattern. Additionally, according to this acquaintance, Amelia had taken money from her under false pretenses and never returned it. The fresh proof strengthened Amelia's standing as a manipulator. Most of the family sided with me, but a tiny group still held to Amelia's narrative, alleging she had been bullied into a breakdown. It was frustrating, but I resolved not to dwell on them. For me, it was sufficient that the truth was known. Amelia knew what she was going to do next. She told certain family members she was going out of town. She asserted that she had to go away from the poison and start over somewhere else. However, the majority of people perceived it as an attempt to avoid responsibility. Amelia subtly withdrew all of her legal threats against me in the interim. Since Amelia had already lost her reputation, my attorney suggested against filing a slander lawsuit. He claimed that since I had already won, there was no use in continuing the argument. My parents sincerely apologized for doubting me and for allowing Amelia's actions for years. They have begun attempting to mend our friendship, but I have established clear limits. I'll maintain some communication, but I won't let them reintegrate Amelia into my life until she accepts complete responsibility for her conduct, which is unlikely given the current state of affairs. As I think about it all, I have a peculiar mixture of relief and fatigue. I was continually defending myself against Amelia's manipulations for years, living under the weight of her lies. I can now go on now that the truth is out. The Reddit community has been amazing, sharing their own tales and providing support. Knowing that I'm not alone is reassuring. I intend to keep Amelia out of the picture for the time being. I will not be involved in anything she does next. Fifth update. After everything with Amelia blew up a few months ago, life seemed to be finally returning to something approaching normal. She hasn't said anything at all, not even cryptic statements on social media or dramatic phone calls to relatives. She is keeping a low profile, which makes sense given all that came to light, based on what I've heard from mutual family members. Even people who used to support her have turned against her. I've concentrated on getting ahead. Therapy has changed everything. My therapist has assisted me in unraveling years of manipulation and gaslighting, and I'm at last beginning to regain the self-assurance Amelia so diligently destroyed. I've also been putting a lot of effort into my work and getting back in touch with old acquaintances. Spending time with folks who are aware of who I really am, free from the specter of Amelia's lies, is a welcome change. My parents, too, have been trying. They began going to family therapy following the most recent update. The procedure was not simple. Growing up, I had many awkward conversations about how their preference for Amelia affected me. However, they are finally admitting their part in everything. My dad has been very proactive, expressing his desire to restore trust and offering a direct apology. Despite her ongoing difficulties with guilt for her long-term support of Amelia, my mom is making an effort. Other relatives have also gotten in touch. Many expressed regret for trusting Amelia's stories and acknowledged that they ought to have sought my opinion before accepting her word for it. It has been a mixed bag. Rebuilding those bridges feels nice, but I can't help but wonder how things could have turned out if they had asked her questions sooner. Nevertheless, I'm going to concentrate on the fact that we're all heading in the correct way at this point. Reddit's assistance has been amazing. One of the best choices I've ever made was to share my experience online. With addition to assisting with Amelia's exposure, it put me in touch with thousands of others who had experienced comparable family dynamics. My strength to keep fighting came from knowing that I wasn't alone. Even conversations about toxic relationships and how to handle them started in my direct messages as a result of the viral attention. Seeing how many individuals were motivated to advocate for themselves by my experience has been humbling. I did learn that Amelia intends to go to a different city from a cousin. She seems to be telling people that she wants a new beginning and intends to turn over a new leaf. I'm not sure if that's real or just a ploy to win people over, and to be honest, I don't care. I'm no longer impacted by her choices, which is a freedom I never imagined having. Amelia did, however, make one final attempt to get in touch. A few weeks ago, she sent me a mysterious email. It was half a game of finger-pointing, half an apology. She wrote about how difficult life has been and how she hopes I will forgive her in the future. However, she also charged me with intensifying the conflict and entangling the family in needless drama. I didn't respond. Amelia is not welcome in my life until she accepts full responsibility for her conduct, as I have made clear to my parents and anybody else who inquires. I'm not sure if I would want her back even in that case. Without Amelia, family get-togethers have resumed, and to be honest, they feel so much lighter now. Open communication is emphasized, and I've observed my parents trying to involve me in choices and hear my viewpoint. Although it's not perfect, it will take time to repair this much damage. It's a step in the right direction. I feel like I belong in my own family for the first time in a long time. Recently, a reporter even inquired about doing a story about harmful family dynamics. Even though it seemed alluring, I chose not to go after it. I've told my tale online enough, and although I appreciate the platform Reddit provided, I don't want to live in the past any longer. I'm prepared to move on now that this chapter is over. In retrospect, the entire ordeal has been a difficult but essential lesson. I now understand the value of self-advocacy, setting boundaries, and following my gut. If something doesn't feel right, it most likely does. And the truth always finds a way to surface, regardless of how much someone tries to change your reality. All you need to do is be prepared to fight for it. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me, offered guidance, or just read my story. Even though it seemed like everyone was against me, you reminded me that I wasn't alone. Everything I went through feels worthwhile when I realize that my story empowered others to confront their own toxic family members. I'm not sure what the future holds for Amelia. However, I have no responsibility for what she does thereafter. I can finally concentrate on my own happiness without her shadow hanging over me. My final piece of advice is to never question yourself when someone tries to change your reality. It's frustrating, draining, and occasionally seems unachievable. However, the truth will always prevail.